Hi everybody, my name is Tim. Thanks for coming to the channel today. We are starting on part 2 of recording with no budget. In a way, this is kind of part 1 because in part 1 I was just talking about this series and giving you the history of this song, an old original of mine called Cold and Lonely Nights. But today we are going to actually start laying down the tracks. We're going to start working on the drums. So let's take a look over here in Reaper where I've got some stuff set up. I went through already and I'm just going to kind of talk you guys through what I've been doing so far. I took the original recording from way back in the early 90s and I kind of mapped it out with some rough drums, and I also used a little synth down here called Surge. Let me see if that'll pop up for us. Yeah, Surge. This is a free VSTI synth that you can download, and I just used it for a guide track. I just put some root notes in. It's a real simple sawtooth kind of sound, nothing really special. This is actually a really cool synth. I'm just not using it in any very cool way right now. This is just got a guide track for me to follow along and for something to lay down the drums to. For the drums, that's something I did want to talk a little bit about here. I'm using the Steven Slate drums version 5.5, the free version that you can get. It's just one drum kit, but it's a pretty good kit, very useful. Here's some of the sounds you can get. There's a ride, crash, got a China, little splash over here, hi-hats. No, I don't want to remove the instrument. Why are you asking me that? Okay, so this is the free version, and I just took it and I mapped out some drum parts for the song. Let me make sure I got everything ready to go here. Yep, okay. So here's what I got so far. You know, nothing really fancy there. A little cool stuff on the ride cymbal that I programmed in. This is all stuff that I programmed by hand myself. This isn't loops that I found. Let me go ahead and stop this. One of the things I always find with drum loops that you download on the internet, they're really useful for coming up with ideas and for mapping things out. But for whatever reason, I don't ever seem to be able to get a loop that fits whatever riff I'm trying to work with. My attitude has always been that the drum loop should fit the riff, not the other way around. And I find a lot of times when I start playing, you know, if I come up with a riff on the guitar and then I say, okay, let me find a rhythm to go along with that, I find a rhythm that's kind of I'll get the right tempo and it'll kind of have the right beat that I'm looking for, but it'll be just different enough that it affects the way that I play the riff. Now, sometimes that can give you a pretty cool result, but more often than not, in my case, I end up feeling like I've kind of lost some of the feel that I started with. So when I'm programming drums, I always have to go in and just kind of do it by hand myself, which takes forever in my case because I am not a drummer. So it takes me a long time to get in my head the count, you know, what instrument I'm trying to play. You know, I have to kind of sit and really think in my head. Bass, bass, snare, bass, bass. And then I got to try and figure out what I want to do with the hi-hats and all. Another, an actual drummer could probably come in and tap it out on the keyboard very quickly if they don't have an electronic kit that they're playing with, or they can grab a mouse and click, 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 and they're done. Me takes forever. But that is something that I'm willing to spend a lot of time on because I don't have a drummer. I don't have a drum set. I don't have the means to get either. So I'm on my own. I just got to put the work in. So, one of the things that I'm not real happy about right now with this drum track is right up here in the top right corner here, it says BPM 130. I matched that to the original recording I had, and that was right about where the original was tempo wise. It varied a little bit because we weren't playing to a click or anything back then. But if you watched part one, you know that I was talking about the tempo and how it really wasn't working for my voice. Singing and playing guitar always felt like I was just, really rushing to get things out, as I mentioned in the first part. So for this version, I wanted to try and slow it down a little bit. But if you'll also remember from part one, I showed you a version that I did much later on in about 2009 that was really slow and really awful. So I got to kind of find a happy median. Now, playing around earlier, I found up here, if I set it to 124, that kind of felt a little bit better. So let's give that another listen. Skip back to the beginning here. Little bit slower, but not, incredibly so as with that other version that I played in the last video. But I'm thinking this gives me a little bit more breathing space when I do go to do the vocal tracks. Okay, so these drums that I just showed you are not the drums that I'm going to be using for the rest of the track. This was a scratch track I threw together in order to then put that surge synthesizer on top and kind of map out the different parts of the song. The intro, the choruses, the verses, my bridge, all that stuff, so that I could lay it out here on screen, and then I would actually start doing some real work. So we've slowed the tempo down a little bit, and then I took and just duplicated my drum track and started doing some edits to it. Whoops. Get surge back up on top there. There we go. That's a little better looking. All right, let's mute the other version. Mute that. Disable the effects and unmute here. Okay, so after a good bit of editing, I got what I think is a little bit more natural sounding drum track. Before I had way too many kick drums going on in there and other parts that were just a little bit too busy. So I simplified a few things and came out here. Now let me stop real quick. Right there at the beginning, you notice on the first part, I had that bum bum da, bum bum da. I decided to take out that first, the tom hits, the bum bum. And I'm going to, when I get to my guitar part, just kind of put in a nice kind of classic rock, just a little palm muted to intro. It's going to go to the and then that first snare or cymbal hit. Kind of like that. See, I kind of simplified the bass drum pattern in there. Kind of gives it a little bit better feel. Now in here, I've still got a lot of editing that I want to do. There's going to be some accents that need to happen where the chords change a little closer to what an actual drummer would do. This, though, is going to be a better guide track for laying down our other parts. And you also notice I don't really have any kind of drum fills anywhere. I need to put some of those in. There's still a lot of drum work to do. Drum work to me is something that I am probably going to take a lot of time, and I'm not going to focus this entire series on making the drums, although it's probably going to be throughout the entire recording process that I'm going to be working on the drums. again, I'm not a drummer, so this is something that's going to take a lot of effort on my part to get something that's natural and fits and grooves well with the song and feels like something that a real drummer might have played. Now, the recording process for me, I've talked about this in one of my other videos a little bit, but I wanted to touch on it here a good bit. The recording process, in my opinion, I should spend the most time on the areas that I am personally the weakest, such as drums and singing. Those are the areas that I'm not as confident in. Those are the areas that I'm not as technically proficient at. So I need to spend a lot of my effort getting those parts up to the level of, say, my guitar playing or the bass playing and the other stuff that I'm better at doing. Those parts are probably going to come a lot faster and a lot easier, and so I don't need to spend as much time to get a quality result from them. Another thing I wanted to talk about today is coming up with a little bit of extra cash. Now, this is not a sponsored portion of the video in any way. I have not been contacted by the makers of this app, but I did want to talk about it a minute because, again, in the first part of the series, I talked about how this project needs to stand on its own apart from, my household budget. It needs to pay for itself. It's not doing that yet, obviously, because I'm still working on it. So I'm going to need a little bit of cash in order to sign up for the digital distribution routes like Spotify and Pandora and getting things on iTunes or Amazon Music. So something I found several months ago, I've used it for just a little bit of extra cash here and there, is an app called Survey Junkie. Now, in Survey Junkie, you can earn points for doing different surveys they send you. And you'll get emails once you sign up, and you might qualify for the survey, you might not. You might start a survey, and then they say, no, you don't fit the demographic we're looking for with this survey. So they give you like a couple of points just for trying, or you might not get anything. Or you could get 10, 20, 30, 50, 70 points depending on the survey. Now, the points directly translate to pennies. So right now, the screenshot I showed you, I have 779 points. That's $7.79 that I could cash out and use. What I have found in my online searching is that DistroKid is $20 a year, and some of the other YouTubers can get some discount codes, so I can probably use one of those and get I think like 10 or 15% off. I think it's maybe 7% something, but a little bit off, $1 or $2 is always worthwhile. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bank my Survey Junkie points here for the remainder of the series until we get to the point where it's time to start setting that stuff up and getting things ready to upload and to publish and release to the world. Another thing I looked at was setting up a domain name and building a website. I found some conflicting stuff back and forth, but it looks like the cheapest route I'm going to be able to go is to set up a free website on Wix.com, and I'm already working on that. Then I can go to GoDaddy, who's having a special right now on your first year of domain name purchase is going to be 99 cents, and then it's $17.99 a year after that. So I think I can get out of this whole kit and caboodle for about $40 a year when it's all said and done. Probably a little bit less than that, maybe closer to 35 or so. But then that first year is going to be 99 cents. So right now my sign up is looking like about $21 is what I need to set my goal for on Survey Junkie, which means I got about another $13-14 to amass. It takes a few weeks. I'm not going to lie. It takes a few weeks at the rate I'm going. But to be fair, that is with almost no effort at all. I do like 1 or 2 surveys a day, and I might get like 10 points here and there, and that just kind of builds up. And I'm already almost at $8, and haven't even really tried. So I think this is going to be a good method to get me out of this initial hump that I need to get over to getting things set up. Okay, next part we're going to work on is I'm going to start trying to lay down the bass track. I've got some working drums going, so now we need to get some working bass going. What I'm going to be using is this guy right here. I got this a long time ago at a local music store called CA House, and they actually have their own branded, let me see if I can get that better in the shot. They actually have their own branded Fender Precision Bass clone. It doesn't even really have a name. I picked this up years ago for like 129 bucks. So that was pretty good steal. And really, it's a pretty good sounding bass. When I went through and compared it to a lot of the other actual Fenders, I really couldn't tell much difference in the sound and the feel until I got up into like the $800 range, and this was $129. So now what we're using is going to be the free version of Amplitube that you can download, and it comes with a bass amp. Let me bypass Amplitube and just hear the direct bass sound that I got. You know, nothing real special, just straight into my mixer and into Reaper. But the Amplitube bass, I also went and added a couple of stomp boxes. I put an overdrive in there with very little actual drive on the overdrive and a compressor pedal just to kind of even things out. But the overdrive just kind of makes it hit things a little bit harder, has a little bit of grit to it. So that's going to be the bass we're using. That is going to be in part 3, which will be coming up soon. All right, everybody, so that is it for today. Again, part 3 is going to be coming soon. We're going to work on the bass. If you guys haven't already done so, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell. The more of you guys that do that, the easier it's going to be for me to let you know when each part of this is ready, and then we can hear the final release when I've got everything done. See you next time.